question's been asked over these last days. What is divine alchemy? Or what is a divine alchemist? Let's see what happens when we mix the chemistry of two seemingly disparate stories together in an endeavor to answer this question for ourselves. First is that story about the great Sufi sheikh who every day accepted the attendance of the many who came from near and far to seek his wisdom. And one day, an old Bedouin, leaning heavily on one of those sharp-pointed staffs that are used to hold men steady, walking in the desert sands, came before the Sufi sheikh. But he did not realize that he was resting the sharp point of his staff on the foot of the sheikh. And as he leaned heavily on that staff in making his discourse to the great sheikh, the point of the staff impaled the foot of the sheikh. The sheikh's face turned completely white with pain, but he remained attentively listening to the pleas of the old Bedouin. At the end of listening to this plea, he even wrote advice on a piece of paper to give solace to the old man, who went off happily. It was only then that the sheikh fainted in pain, with blood pouring from his wound. When he was revived, his followers said to him, "Master, why did you not stop when the stick was impaling you?" And the sheikh said, "I did not wish to interrupt the flow of the importuning of this being." And the second story is about a farmer who, without knowing, as he was on his wagon riding along the road, blocked the path of the king and his entourage in his carriage. The king became very angry and said to the farmer, and the king had a quirk, and that quirk was that he loved riddles. So he said to the farmer, "Tomorrow I will have your head lopped unless you can solve a riddle." And he gave the farmer a conundrum. Now the farmer went home, and he was crying to his family, "The king is going to lop my head unless I can solve this riddle." And his young daughter said, "Father, what is the riddle?" And when he told her, she said, "Don't worry, Father, here is the answer." So the next day, the farmer went back to the king and gave the answer to the riddle that was given. "Oh," said the king, "oh, that's fair enough, but that's not good enough. Here's another riddle, and if you can't get it, tomorrow I'll lop your head." So again, the farmer went back to his family crying, His daughter again said, "Don't worry, father, what is the riddle?" And again she gave the answer, which the farmer in turn gave to the king. But the king was again not satisfied. He said, "All right, here's another riddle. Otherwise your head will be lopped." So the farmer went back, and again his daughter was able to solve the riddle 3 times. So the farmer went back to the king, and the king said, "I can see that you're not a clever man. It was not you who gave the answers to these riddles. Who was it?" The farmer said, "Well, it was my young daughter." The king said, "I would like to marry this girl. Send her to me tomorrow. But she must come with a gift that is not a gift, neither riding nor walking, neither dressed or undressed." So when the farmer went home again, he said, "Oh, it's impossible." "No," said his daughter, the maiden. Next day, the daughter went to the king. She was riding on a young donkey which had her legs dangling at the side, so she was neither riding nor walking. And covering her body was a fish net, so she was neither clad nor not clad. So when she was presented to the king, in her hand she handed him a dove, which immediately she opened her hand, the dove flew off, a gift that was not a gift. So, of course, the king married this very clever young woman. But he said to her before their marriage, "I am marrying you, but there is one rule. You must never give me advice." So the maiden promised this. But like all kings, he had people come to him day after day with their problems that he would endeavor to solve. And his wife was always in attendance at these. But then one day a problem was brought to the king, and listening to it, his wife interrupted to give the solution to the problem that was given. The king was very angry. "Didn't I tell you that you are never to give me advice? I now banish you from my presence. Out of the palace you go." So the maiden, now of course the queen, said, "Sire, I do your bidding, I will leave. But may I take with me that in the palace which is most dear to me?" "Oh," said they, "oh, well, yes, of course." So that night, as the king was being given his repast, the young queen put a potion in his wine, which put him into a deep sleep. And while he was asleep, she had the servants put him in a cart and take him back to her father's farm. So the next morning, the king woke up. "Where am I? What am I doing here?" "Oh," said his wife, "you said that I could bring with me that which I held most dear, and it is you, my dear husband. Well, of course, this changed immediately the king's point of view. In fact, something merged in him, one might say. And he took back his wife to the palace, and from that moment on, both of them ruled in fairness, and of course the kingdom prospered, and so forth, and so on. First question that arises is, what does the maiden who became the queen represent in this story? And how, when we put the chemistry of these two stories together, what is it that arises? Even the whiff of an aroma, because there's always a smell from chemistries. Can you catch a whiff of what it is that these two stories create for us? But first, to answer the question, what does the maiden represent in this second story? Grasping in our psyche.
She's like the power, the knowledge that is always there, and the father is like us, like the doubting one, like, oh, I can't do it.
Yes.
And then it's like she, that thing within us that is powerful.
Yes.
And then she blooms.
Yes.
And then she's not just that little, we don't doubt her anymore. Now she's there ruling.
Right. But putting the two together, what is it that arises for us? The story of the sheikh.
Well, for me it's just that humble thing, like there she's in the background, she's that humble, and he is like that too, isn't he, the sheikh? That's all that's going on. It's not like, get out my way, I'm more important than what you are.
No. And we can take from our own life where we're at now in relationship to our interaction with life. Because for us, we recognize, if we look at that phrase of the Buddhists, life is suffering, that whatever reality is presented to us is like the staff going in our foot. Because everything that's presented to us is a presentation of suffering. Wouldn't you agree with me? Because our sensibilities are now aware at every level, that which is alchemy, feeling, experiencing what that other person is. And that other person represents the struggle, the striving, the pain of life. Isn't it so? Every situation. There is none that is known that is not that, because our sensibilities and receptivities are so open to what's presented to us. And that truth, that recognition of life as suffering is there with us like the staff in our foot all the time, isn't it? And yet we You see what comes out of this? Thank you.